Today's amazing episode is sponsored by Slack from Salesforce, a product I've been using for over a decade. Somewhere along the way, Slack became a verb, then eventually the company was acquired by Salesforce in 2021 for about $28 billion. This week's big announcement, another milestone in a nearly two-decade journey to make work a source of joy. The Slack team introduced MCP support within Slack to bring data from systems like CRM and BI tools into the flow of conversation. I had the pleasure of attending the pre-launch event, which was a real banger, high atop the gorgeous Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco. The AI is breathtakingly good because it just feels natural. They call it moving from single-player to multiplayer AI. If you haven't yet explored the Salesforce data, Tableau, Data 360, and AI agent integrations via MCP, turn them on today. Now back to today's conversation.
Using your human capital system to collect skills data, using your business leaders to tell you what skills are more important, and orchestrating a way you can connect those two to give everybody quality data back is actually easier than you think. It's a little bit of a journey to do, but I think that's a applicable one.
Yo, it's the future, don't hit the snooze. AI is here giving humans the boost. Team Humans rolling, brains in the game with Dan Turchin. Y'all remember the name. People reign in the mix, no stopping the flow. Better work, better life, yeah, we're ready to go. Robots and humans, a collab, you know. Okay, let's start the show.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're listening. Welcome back to AI and the Future of Work, episode 397. I'm your host, Dan Turchin, CEO of PeopleRain, the AI platform for IT and HR employee service. If you like what we do, you owe it to humanity to share this episode or any other that you've enjoyed with at least one person. They'll know that you care about creating a better work life, a better future of work, and you care about exercising AI responsibly. If you leave a comment, I just may share it in an upcoming episode, like this one from the mailbag from Janice in Rutherford, New Jersey, who is a startup CEO. Janice's favorite episode is number 58. Whoa, that's so way back. From 2021 with Rory O'Driscoll, partner at Scale Venture Partners, about 3 essential strategies for startups raising venture capital. We learn from AI thought leaders weekly. Of course, the added bonus, you get one AI fun fact. Here it is for today. Technology.org published an article this week about how major banks face investigation over AI hiring tools. In it, they say banks may be systematically and illegally discriminating against qualified job applicants by using AI for screening. If an AI is trained on a company's historical hiring data, and that history includes patterns of human bias, the AI will learn to replicate and even amplify those same discriminatory practices. HR tech vendors, including Workday and Eightfold, have been at the center of the controversy. In the case of Wells Fargo specifically, the current investigation is focused on systematic rejection of applicants based on race, gender, or disability, and the degree of human oversight involved in automated screening decisions. Of course, we'll share a link to that full article in the show notes. My commentary on this one: know your rights as a job applicant. In the United States, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission was established in 1965 to protect employees from discrimination, regardless of race, color, gender, or disability. Longtime listeners will have heard the great conversation we had with Keith Sonderling, then EEOC Commissioner and now current U.S. Deputy Secretary of Labor, who was back on episode 307 in 2024 about the evolving role of AI in hiring and how it's forcing federal enforcement policies to evolve. AI is biased because humans are biased. AI allows us to replicate human bias at scale, question the process by which decisions were made that impact you based on algorithms. You have a right to know what inputs fed the algorithms, how the algorithm weighted the inputs. If you disagree with the automated decision, you have the right to involve a human. It's all our responsibility to hold AI vendors and AI algorithms accountable. Of course, we'll continue having more discussion on that important topic. Now shifting to this week's very relevant conversation. Maryjo Charbonnier is Kyndryl's Chief Human Resources Officer, bringing extensive experience in global HR leadership and large corporate transformations. Kyndryl is the world's largest provider of IT infrastructure services with more than 70,000 global employees. It was spun out of IBM in 2021 and was previously known as IBM Global Technology Services. Maryjo joined Kyndryl from Wolters Kluwer, where she served as Chief Human Resources Officer starting in 2015. Prior to that, she was CHRO at Broadridge Financial Solutions after serving as an HR executive in a variety of roles at PepsiCo. Maryjo graduated from Catholic University in Washington, D.C., go Cardinals, and earned her MBA at the Southern Methodist University in Dallas in 2019. She was named CHRO of the Year in the Netherlands. And without further ado, it really is my pleasure to welcome Maryjo to the podcast. Let's get started, Maryjo, by having you share a bit more about that illustrious background and how you got to where you are today.
Hi, Dan. So nice to meet you, and thanks for having me today. Great to be here, and what an opening to follow. My career, I started my career in HR management training program, and then I joined PepsiCo, and as you said, had a variety of roles there, and then wanted to become a CHRO, and I have spent almost the last 20 years being a public company CHRO, both here in the US, and Wolters Kluwer was traded on the Dutch exchange, so experience on both continents.
You took over various roles at PepsiCo at a challenging time, and I've heard you describe elsewhere what your approach was when transforming some of what you inherited at PepsiCo to have the audience get to know you a little bit better. Could you share a little more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what I've loved in HR, we all have the things we love. I love messy transformation. So when things are not working, when things are a turnaround or a major change event, I was the head of change management for all of Frito-Lay at one point. I think that's where I really decided, that's really what I love and what I'm good at. And I think, we'll talk about career advice. I always tell people, seek the heat, go where the problems are. You are going to find that executive attention is disproportionately focused on the problems. You get more visibility, you learn more. And I think most leaders can see who's in the mix of a problem and really trying to make a difference, even if they don't have it figured out completely. It always served me well. And so that's really, if you look at my career has really been a hallmark of how do you help organizations drive major change when people are at the center of that kind of pivot moment. That's what I've looked for, and that's what I've loved, whether it's been 2 spin-offs, an acquisition, several turnarounds. I think these are the things, and then thread through, the human capital agenda needs a strategic shift. And the HR team has to go on that journey to really help the business sort of put wind in their sails.
I've heard you and others describe Kyndryl as the world's largest startup.
Yeah.
Talk to us about some of the challenges of walking into a spin out or the world's largest startup and kind of creating a company culture that didn't exist before.
Yeah. So when they called me about the job, they said, okay, it's going to be I think we were the largest spin at the time on the New York Stock Exchange. It was a business that was troubled. It was not growing. It was losing money. And there you are under the bright lights of Wall Street. And we really needed to kind of renovate the human capital strategy to support a business to return to growth, return to profitability, and distinguish itself. I mean, IBM, wonderful company, storied brand, and then you arrive in a marketplace with a name no one knows, let alone how to spell. So I think it was an awesome chance to really get to build something at scale, because there's not a lot of places where you can give birth to a company that's 60 countries and at that time 90,000 Kyndryls. So I think one of the first things Martin, who's the CEO, and I decided along with the senior team was we were really going to work to define the culture. And if you think about in a services company how your employees behave, is really your brand. It's a lot about what gets transmitted. So if we wanted and words are important, that's why we don't call our employees, we call them Kyndryls. How our Kyndryls show up every day with our customer is about how do we need to show up as leaders? What behaviors do we exhibit to start that? So we defined 6 key behaviors or principles, as we call them. I'm rather fond of them because they're not the traditional words you find on a poster. I'll give them to you. They are restless, empathetic, devoted to shared success. That's how we interact with our customers and our communities and ourselves, and then how we organize our work, flat, fast, and focused. And everything we've done to build Kyndryl since then has really been about reinforcing those principles. And you can see it show up in our customer survey. You can see it show up in our Kyndryl or employee survey. And we measure that because I think if you're going to take on changing a culture has to have an operating plan, an annual operating plan, just like any other business metric.
You're talking to a lot of aspiring HR leaders. You forget more in an afternoon about how to run a large organization's HR organization than most listeners will learn in a lifetime. So you've earned the right to tell us from Maryjo's perspective, what is the function of HR? And maybe even if I could also ask a follow-up, how has it changed over the last decade?
Yeah. Look, so much of what we do is really helping human beings excel in the environment to serve, that organization's customers. That means, how do we even think about the type of talent we need that you might have or that you're going to need? And in my cases, many times taking these jobs, the talent that the organization is known for and has in abundance may not be the talent it needs in the future. And, that's a really important discussion to lead. How do we invest in it? How do we motivate it? How do we reward it? Where's the balance point between, what I'll use our Kyndryls want and what we can do as the organization? And so I think it's a wonderful job because you get to think about, some of the most important things on the planet. And, look, we spend a lot of time at work. And if you know my story, at one point, I thought I was going to be a nun. I decided not to pursue that career path. But I really think this job is a calling. And you have a chance to make the time people spend, and it's a lot of time at work, so much more meaningful, so much impactful. One of the funny games in life I'll play, I'll let you in on it, Dan, is if I'm like killing time in line at the airport, maybe relevant for today, or waiting to get my food at a restaurant, I'll just start to listen to the conversations around me. And usually 8 out of 10 conversations that are going on around me are about somebody talking about their job and what they're frustrated with, or what's going on. And they're almost always on an HR front. Just try it as an activity is what I would encourage everyone to do. So I think it always proves the point of how important HR is to, and I loved your opening, making this a better place and a better world, and caring enough to do that.
We didn't rehearse that one, but I love that's where you went immediately. And that transcends all periods of time. We're taping this in 2026, and gosh, there's never been a more challenging time to be leading the people function, because AI is destabilizing everyone. Everyone enters the workplace every day wondering if they're about to train their AI replacement, and they're looking to leadership to either stabilize them or feed on their fears and the instability that they get when they're outside work. How do you think about the changing relationship between employees and their employers, given what we're going through right now?
Yeah, and maybe coming out of a tech services firm, I mean, the pace of change in tech has been, relentless over the past couple of decades. So, and I think it'll change again in another, year or so. So I think one is accepting that it's going to be a great pace of change. And that's why we come back to at Kyndryl, that principle of restless, which we talk about, is to continuously innovate and learn. That's a point we talk to our Kyndryls about, and we'll talk more about that in a second, and then to our customers about as well. So we all need to be restless right now, as we have been, to continuously innovate and learn. We also talk to our Kyndryls about telling us about your skills, because we find that AI automates, first task, workflow, chunks of jobs. It doesn't just pop on the scene and automate jobs all that easily day one. And so I think that, in a world of ever-changing technology, what differentiates you is your skills. But I can help you build skills, but you have to tell me about your skills. And we use the concept of make yourself discoverable, right? As AI does change the work, I want a Kyndryl ready for the next assignment that comes their way. And so to keep it up to date, we actually built a tool to help with using AI to help our Kyndryls keep their what we call career profile up to date, so that we know about their most important skills that we need in the future. It helps them assess their skills. It helps them give them advice on which ones to add. It helps them write a little bio. Because we also use all of that to find Kyndryls when we're looking to redeploy them, but also to showcase them to customers when new opportunities have come up. And we've had great success with that. So I think, continuing to encourage all Kyndryls to also learn about AI and pilot. In our recent town hall, we tend to showcase things, even just small things folks have done to learn along the journey. So I would say that's just a couple examples of some of the things we're doing.
As you're helping Kyndryls do that kind of skills inventory and maybe kind of skills development, talk to us about kind of the skills on that map. Like, someone walks in and says, I feel like I'm right in the crosshairs of a role that could be automated. I want to upskill or reskill. How do they start that journey?
Sure. And maybe I'll weave in the question you asked around what is the role of HR? How has it changed, right? And I believe to ground us in the framework for the answer to that question you asked, which is, if you think about the role of HR, we really have three roles to play in AI. One, how is it changing the commercial aspect of the business? How is it being used to do the work differently that you get paid to do for customers? And I think as a function, we often don't spend enough time right now talking about that. Because we spend time, as we should, talking about governance, and that's important on AI. And the last one is, how are we using it to do our own HR work? But I want to stay on the commercial side for just a second, which is it's really important to understand right now with your business leaders what skills are rare in your organization. What are the skills you make the most money off of? And you've got to be able to define that. Now, you can buy lots of skills frameworks out there. It's all really great and it'll be a really good jumpstart. But here's what we found. What's really important to define is what's really important to your business, and that you can't really buy easily anywhere. So we worked with, we have something called profession leaders at Kyndryl who help us for each sort of job family define what's important, what's changing in those skills. We worked with those leaders and the HR team to define those skills, to get them sort of architected in our human capital systems. And then in that make yourself discoverable campaigns that we run, we direct Kyndryls to tell us about a specific set of skills that we know may be constrained or rare in our environment, or that we have an abundance of work for. Because when we open our human capital system, we've architected it in a way, Dan, where I can see what % of customer demand we have filled or not filled with a Kyndryl. We can increasingly see our subcontractor and vended workforce, because if I believe that AI may displace work, what I really and displace Kyndryls, which is a lot of what the fear factor is about, what I want to make sure is I can put a Kyndryl to work first every day. And then we also want to be able to see increasingly in a single pane of glass that agentic workforce. So today, we not only map our Kyndryls to a global skill and career framework, we map our subcontractors to a version of that so we can see what type of work they are doing for us. And we're working on envisioning how in the future we'll map our agentic workforce into that to give our business leaders continually a single pane of glass to view the workforce.
I think you probably know this, but it bears repeating. We host a lot of CHROs and HR leaders, but the way that you've taken it out of kind of the realm of being conceptual to actually applying it, you're in the top 0.01% of all organizations. Sounds like you're actually operationalizing it. It sounds like that was a very intentional effort. Can you talk about any data about how it's being used or adopted?
Listen, I think, and it's been some trial and error along the way. And if you were inside Kyndryl, nobody thinks this works as well as it should be yet. So I appreciate the compliment. But there's lots to learn and do. We will learn from others as well. I think here's what I would tell you is, and I'll tell you a story of like what we learned along the way, like, because I think that's almost more interesting for your listeners, right? So in the first round of Make Yourself Discoverable on skills, we were like, tell us about your skills. And we had 94% of employees complete their career profile. And I was like, that's super. And then with so much data, we couldn't actually see what was important because we hadn't done that work, which was 2.0 of let's go off with our business leaders to find what skills are really important and ask Kyndryls to do it again. And that didn't work so well either. We got clarity on what was important to the business, but everybody's busy and they were, chasing everybody to do it. So then we got 3.0 busy. 3.0 was okay, and we'll give you an agent to help you do it, and we'll give you a score, and we'll direct your efforts. And now 85% of Kyndryls have skills aligned to those areas that our leaders have said is important. And along the way, we discovered we had 5% more certifications, which are really important in our business than we thought. So I would say it's actually relatively on all the things out there. I think for your listening group, using your human capital system to collect skills data, using your business leaders to tell you what skills are more important, and orchestrating a way you can connect those two to give everybody quality data back is actually easier than you think. It's a little bit of a journey to do, but I think that's a applicable one. And being able to say, I'll give you another one. We know we fill about 93% of customer demand on any given day. And we can now see the patterns of work that we can't resource with a Kyndryl. So we've gotten much more surgical in the learning we can deploy, because I can say, if you learn these skills now, we can redeploy you onto an assignment faster. And so I think we have found, even though it doesn't work as well as we all want it to on any given day, we've seen lots of good business and, Kyndryl benefits to it.
One of the ancillary benefits that makes that answer so beautifully is that you're showing, not telling, but you're showing Kyndryls how AI can be an ally and not an adversary, right? They come in and they're apprehensive, but you provide AI as a way for them to upskill, reskill, add certifications, right? You're leading with AI as a tool that helps them. Is that something that was, I imagine, intentional?
Yeah, I think, and we're building AI and using AI for our customers. So I think it maybe is not as scary, given we have a workforce who actually builds and deploys AI for customers as well, and then that becomes a nice reinforcing piece. We've also tried to develop an AI curriculum that's sort of targeted to the job, right? Not everyone needs the same level of AI learning in their job. We make it available for everyone, but you can go through our systems to say, but my job is this. And then we give you a recommended curriculum that's tailored more to what you need to know and do, and how do you add customer value.
I mentioned there are two ends of the spectrum. There's AI as ally and there's AI as adversary. And I intentionally pulled that AI fun fact about how other places it can be perceived as an adversary, particularly in the hiring process when you're not clear what data it's collecting, how it's using or potentially misusing it. When you feel like it's being misused or used to do harm against you, it's kind of opaque what you can do about it. talk to us about how you address the trust gap between employees and the potential unintended consequences of this kind of AI that's ambient in the enterprise.
Yeah. Look, and maybe I'll talk about, what stays the same and what changes about leadership in an age of AI. And I think every era pulls on different emphasis points in leadership. And we've talked about right now, kind of like it is a concept, and I like 3-letter acronyms because they're easy for me to remember. But if you think about ORE, it really is the ingredient in the earth of the kind of what the foundation of things are on, and it's the ingredient into iron, right? And I think leadership is so fundamental, right? It's the substance of what happens in an organization. So what does the O stand for? Which is, I think, increasingly, and maybe this is what's old is new again, teaching leaders about job design and work design and workflow as AI automates tasks, processes, workflow, chunks of jobs. We used to teach that in leadership curriculums. We haven't in a long time. That's something we're contemplating doing. The second, the R in OR is really for risk management, and that's what your question is really getting at. And the E is for empathy, right? As all of us as humans come under increasing amounts of stress and fear, I think, we learned the importance of empathy during COVID. Someone said to me recently, it feels like the stress of COVID without the camaraderie recently. I thought, yes, that's sort of insightful. And how do we rally around that? But let's talk about the R, is where your question was, on risk management and judgment. And what is judgment but pattern recognition, right? When have I seen this before? When has something like this happened in this context? What are the conditions around it? What does my experience say? And then, do I have a courage to make a decision, right? And the one thing about AI is it can be great at pattern recognition. And if you feed it enough information, the conditions around that. But you want to keep probably a person in the decision as we learn on this, and really think about, where is the decision making versus the data gathering. And that's why, we have an AI governance council. We agreed that all use cases for AI come into that in Kyndryl. And we set some parameters around what we think is high risk or low risk use cases. And they sort of get triaged by a multifunctional team with the CIO, with the legal team, with the HR team as needed, if there's a human element to some of this. And we review all of those to make sure we understand our consumption as an organization of the risk we're taking on. And if it's a higher risk, it gets a different vetting process than maybe something we deem as kind of lower risk. And I think describing that process, which I was really worried about, it's going to slow us down, because as the HR team, we put some probably through the most use cases of the internal customers on this side. I was really worried it was going to slow us down, but actually I think it's helped the teams think through things. It gives good guidance. And I think it's helped us all get smarter about how to use it.
That's a very satisfying answer. I think most organizations haven't achieved that clarity of thinking about how to proactively address the very real apprehensions that employees have.
Yeah. And I think another piece is, as we build AI for our customers, one of the things we're talking about is sort of policy as code, right? In HR, we'll keep it in the HR space. We have so many policies, right? And they're like, hey, do this, unless this happens, then you do this, here's the guidelines. I think we forget to talk about how AI can help us make sure we're staying rules-based, right? You can program the AI with the policy and turn it into code that is written so that the AI actually surfaces up, does a lot of the heavy lift of the boring drudgery, and let's take the world in AI, like review the set of facts for the policy. It can say, hey, these are the facts. This is the pattern. Here's if I feed it the conditions where things are different, so that it surfaces up something that is unique that needs human intervention. And I think we don't spend enough time thinking about maybe how it could change the work for the better and make sure things like compliance and governance happen for the better.
As a race, humans have proven over the centuries to be very good at being resourceful and resilient and creative. And whether it was through the disruptions from the printing press or the steam engine or the internet or perhaps AI, we've always found a way to reinvent ourselves. And those I share frequently who are on the right side of innovation tend to benefit. Situation may be a little murky. It's the first time where we've had a technology that feels human-like, and so it may be threatening in different ways. But what's your vision of how the org chart will look, let's say in a decade, just to pick a reasonable time frame, that is different from how it looks today? What are some of the roles that were just requires a little bit of a leap of faith, but that you think will be available and create jobs that aren't available today?
Well, I mean, I think every technology has often just brought actually a boom of jobs, new jobs, and I'll also say, when I started my career, you had to be careful crossing the street. I worked down on Wall Street because you might get run over by a bike messenger. And what were the bike messengers doing? They were delivering mostly documents, because that was even pre the dawn of email and early on in fax machines. And most of Wall Street still sent documents around on couriers. Now, step onto any New York street and you have to be careful not to get hit by a bike messenger delivering food and Amazon packages. And so they're back. And so even high tech or low tech jobs, they tend to, what's old is new again kind of thing. So what do I think will happen on org charts? I think it's early to make wild predictions, but what I would say is, I think tech-enabled skill sets, particularly in the STEM fields, we're going to continue to grow. And remember, AI is as good as the data it's running off of. So we can't forget the importance of data science, data engineering. And also, I think the other thing that will grow will be, and it's gone by maybe different names, but it'll be, I think true again, is those folks who can really manage change and look at the work processes, whether that's Six Sigma or org change management, but people who help organizations achieve both the benefits and get the people changing, right? Because a lot of this is about changing potentially our own behavior. And if you've ever led a big change initiative in an organization, that's not so easy, right? Because only behavior changes behavior, someone once said to me.
So I believe you, like I, have kids, and we're kind of shepherding them through a confusing process about what to study and, what to pursue. And what does it mean to be a human in an era where it seems like, the bots are taking over? By the way, they're not. But as Maryjo, the parent, what do you say to your kids about how they should navigate this tricky time?
Well, you can imagine there's lots of discussion on that in a house with 2 CHROs and 5 kids. Look, what I've told my kids historically and tell them now is, again, so many of our kids grew up in school systems that emphasize all the right things, but there's a lot of competition on sort of, intellect. And I say to my kids, you think the system that has reared you makes you think you get paid for smarts. And that's true. But what you really get paid for is great people leadership skills along with those smarts. And I think we can't afford in today's day and age to forget to teach our kids about the importance of leadership, the importance about team building, the importance of conflict resolution, and courage. So we spend a lot of time talking about those things.
Maybe for your next act, you need to bottle up some of that wisdom and share it with all the parents out there.
Okay. I'll think about
I encourage
that.
you to do that. Maryjo, unbelievably, we're about out of time. I know it feels like we're just starting this conversation, but you're not getting off the hot seat without answering one last very important question for me. We're talking a lot about the future of work and how it impacts Kyndryls. What's one workplace behavior, let's pick a shorter time horizon, 3 to 5 years, that you think just within the friendly confines of Kyndryl that will be fundamentally different in 3 to 5 years that today might seem like science fiction?
Work behavior. Let's see. I think this concept of, and I don't know that these are different, but they'll be important. And I'll come back to, the Kyndryl way, as we call it, kind of principles. One of the things I think we've talked a lot about is being devoted to shared success, devoted to our customers' success, our shareholders, our employees. And I think for leaders to think about what does that mean? How are we devoted to that, as well as the communities we live and work in, has been an important part of our culture, continues to be an important part of our culture. And thinking through how we do that while we do it in an empathetic way and, continuously learn new skills and the new technology. So I think the Kyndryl way is as relevant as when we published it almost 4.5 years ago. And I still think 4.5 years from now, it'll be just as relevant.
Is that something that is available publicly?
Oh, yeah. And we have a leadership behavior handbook that goes with it. We'll be happy to share it with you, Dan, as well. And you can read about our Kyndryl Way culture and the Kyndryl Way on our website.
We're going to ask your team to share a list of those links, and hopefully our audience can benefit from some of that accumulated wisdom. Maryjo, this has been such a pleasure. I have been counting down the days until we got to record this one. We put it on the calendar months back and didn't disappoint. Just wonderful having you on the podcast.
Okay. Well, thanks, Dan. Really great to be here. Thanks
Excellent.
to all your listeners as well.
Any social properties or any place else that the audience should go to learn more about you and the work that your team's doing?
Oh, besides our website, I don't know that we have a great new answer on that one.
Nothing needed. Okay. We'll share the links to all those resources you mentioned. Well, gosh, that is all the time we have for this week on AI and the future of work. Thanks, of course, to Maryjo, and I'm Dan Turchin from PeopleRand, and we'll be back next week with another fascinating guest.
Yo, it's the end of the show. Time to power it down. AI's the sis, but humans wear the crown. Team Human in the house, got the vibe so clever. Dan Turchin from PeopleRand, making us better. We learned about AI for humans. We're ready to conquer the future. That's all for now. See you next time.